Welcome back to another edition of the Santita Jackson Show. Boy, have we got a show for you. Part 2 of our discussion on dating while separated. The male perspective. Oh, I cannot wait to have this discussion. A one-on-one with Reverend, well, he's an attorney as well, Bertram Marks. We can't wait to hear from him. And first up, interracial relationships. Terrence Howard has taken a real beating about not being married to a black woman. Does it still matter in 2013? And I want you to be a part of the Santita Jackson studio audience. So call the number on your screen so that you can be a part of the family here today. We'll be back with more in just a moment.
Coming up next on the Santita Jackson Show is our Say What segment.
Interracial relationships in 2013. Does it still matter? Terrence Howard has taken to the internet world. Well, he's exploded on it because people have been beating him up, he says, about not being married to a black woman. We love Terrence Howard. And I have to tell you personally, I don't mind that he's not married to a black woman. It really doesn't matter to me at all. But for a good many of us, it really does. Black, white, brown, yellow, and red. So let's talk about this. Ed Foxworthy. Oh, no, you're Foxworth.
I am.
I'm talking about the Christian comedian.
It's all right. I get the wire all the time. I just want his money.
I messed up, but we're going to keep on rolling with this. Ed Foxworth, but of course, we have seen you on CBS here in Detroit, but you are a media personality. We got to get you on this national scene, but of course on the Word Network, that's what you are. And my colleague from Fox News, Angela McGlowan, best-selling author of Bamboozled, and political lobbyist. Boy, you do so much. And then you're sitting next to a minister and a lawyer, Reverend Bertram Marks, but of course you've been a part of the Michigan Civil Rights Commission, but you're also a lawyer for pastors.
Yes.
That's a whole different discussion. I can't wait to talk about that. Interracial relationships. Maybe I should go to the brothers first. I don't know.
Whatever your pleasure, my dear. It's
well,
your
no.
show.
No.
It's
Ladies
your show.
first. Ladies first. Latifah's in the house. Talk to me.
2013.
What do you think? 2013. Does it matter?
It does. In certain circles. Now look, love knows no color.
Right.
Because if you have a white person, you have me, we both bleed red blood. However, I'm from the South. Grew up in the South. I'm from Mississippi. And you still have pains of the past and sins of the past down there. Alfre Woodard, an actress, is married to brilliant, wonderful sister, married to a white man, filmed a movie in Oxford, Mississippi, The Gun in Mary Lou's Handbag. The talk of the town was, she's married to a white man. I like it, but she's married to a white man. So I think people still
on both sides of town?
Both sides.
Is that interesting? I'm still talking about both sides of town in
both
2013.
Both sides. Well,
Black
in Mississippi, we don't even have graveyards that are integrated. And in Mississippi,
really?
the most segregated day is Sunday, and you have blacks across town that are buried and whites across town that are buried. And people saw that as a problem that she loved a white man.
But you know, that's kind of Chicago too. That's kind of still, right?
Really?
Yes, come on. We've just been integrating cemeteries. You know, we act like we've been free longer than we have. We were in slavery longer than we've been freed. And so we have to, so a lot of this stuff really is with us. Ed, what do you think about this? Terrence Howard has taken a real beat down. I started reading some of the comments. I was a little surprised.
I think for Terrence Howard and anybody else in Hollywood, they're in a totally different class. I don't think people in Hollywood take marriage seriously, whether they're black and white at all. It's a luxury for them, something to do outside of just being boyfriend girlfriend. So I don't have a real strong feeling, as you can notice.
Marriage is a convenience. Okay.
So I think using them as a benchmark might be kind of off the mark when you look at real relationships outside of Hollywood, and when people really get down into the
real
ins and outs and real lights. Right. I think, as the point's been made, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. The only thing I would hope that needs to happen is that individuals are able to hold on to who they are, what they stand for, and where they come from. And when they're able to do that, then and stay in the marriage, I think there's a mutual respect that just supersedes everything else.
I think, Santita, though, in certain circles, that if a black woman is with a white man, in certain circles it's accepted better. But in our community, if a black man takes a white woman, I think that there's more of a stigma attached.
Reverend Marks, I know you want to jump in right here.
Yes, I think this is a good place to jump in. I think what we have to think about when we view the whole concept of interracial marriage is that, let's take the sisters first. Most often, when women view a high-profile person, whether that be an NBA player, NFL, or in this case, a Hollywood actor, there's a certain amount of ownership and pride that is associated with that individual being on that high stage. And when that individual takes a mate that does not reflect the people who are idolizing or supporting him, there's a certain amount of pain associated with it from the sister. So I think that the criticism comes from that area. About the issue itself, it is really not a significant issue, except that we have to understand the reasons behind it. And I think Dr. Alvin Poussant characterized this issue most effectively, and this was probably 20 years ago. And he said that, in essence, if a man chooses a mate based on what's inside and what the qualities that are positive that he learned from childhood, then it doesn't matter what the ethnic background of that individual is. What matters is that he is choosing from a healthy position.
Yes.
However, we know that in our community, there is a stigma. There is some self-hatred. Anytime that brothers will define a woman and say, she's attractive, and then they say she's light-skinned.
A red bone.
And so that, or that ridiculous term, when we use...
There is a song about that
Red
now.
bone.
Yeah, when we use these kinds of acronyms, when we use these, not acronyms, but adjectives to describe beauty, we are defining something that does not reflect truly on who we are.
I have something just came to me, Reverend Marks, as I'm looking at him, listening to him. Okay, Terrence Howard is one person, but would we accept a white first lady of one of our big black churches?
I don't think there's any question, because the issue is never whether or not African American people accept whites. That's, you know, as Malcolm X said, you know, black folks love whites and have always demonstrated that. Look at every presidential race.
We would figure that out, wouldn't we?
We would figure that out, and we are very accepting as a people. It's innate. If you look at our history as Africans, we are accepting. We are not aggressive and territorial. We have become that in this country, and for some reason we have a sense of violence as it relates to one another, but as a whole we are not an aggressive, rejecting people. We're very accepting, welcoming, forgiving, and loving, because we're spiritually based.
So you're saying that, I mean, are you, given what you've seen in Mississippi, given what you've seen in life, because we live in this world, do you think that if we flipped that, do you think if you had a black woman who was married, because you know you have a lot of big white evangelical preachers now, if he or she married a black person, do you think there would be acceptance?
I know you directed this question to somebody else, but let me just jump in right here. The question is the person that we're talking about rejecting him or herself?
Exactly.
If you have an individual that rejects all things African American and is married to someone who is not African American, that's going to cause and draw the ire of people associated with that person.
Oftentimes we don't even wait to find out if that's the case.
That is true.
We know, because phenotype matters. We are still caught up in colorism,
You
hair
have to
texture, all of that.
know who you are and
Right.
whose you are. Because what's most important, if you choose a mate out of your race, you have to be equally yoked.
Well, you're going to be
And
equally yoked. You just to be yoked to a lesser
that
angel.
is with God, because
No.
in being an interracial marriage or relationship, a relationship is tough and marriage is tough anyway. And can you imagine being married to someone that doesn't come from your culture if you two are not on the same page? If you're not, you know, rope is supposed to be you, your husband, and Jesus Christ. If you don't have that, you have a challenge right there. And from a personal standpoint, I've been engaged 3 times, but my second engagement, I was engaged to a Jewish man. He did not believe in Jesus Christ. We kept going to through different challenges and going to different types of counselors, but until he could accept Jesus, we weren't equally yoked. So we failed before we got there. And I did not marry this person.
And there's a strong component about this that if we back up from it all, you know, I love what Reverend Marks was alluding to, is that what we've done as a culture, African American culture, is strongly become followers. And I relate it to what I do with marketing. I always tell people that I want to move you from the consumer side to the supplier side. We have not been in the position where we've been aggressive to be on the side where we're educating, we are the one who are leading. We typically, as we talk about Terrence Howard, we follow. So yes, when you see somebody out there, you're following and you're looking and you're seeing what they do, and that sets the benchmark for how you think you ought to lead your life. And I think that that's been a big challenge for us.
But that's
is that
a weak
we are,
person, Ed.
well,
That's a
true,
weak person.
but it's a cultural problem.
It is a cultural problem that we very rarely address. The issue is, as we grow, and I agree with you, as we grow closer to success, we tend to distance ourselves from those things that are authentic to our culture.
Because we start leading.
We begin to associate success, we begin to associate position and authority with those things that are not African American, and that causes a real problem, and that goes back to the issue of self-hatred. We have a habit of in our community, and we have to talk about it in order to fix it. We are quick to tear down institutions that belong to us. We are quick to tear down leaders who have been fighting for us, people like your father. We are quick to tear down those things that belong to us. We have yet to acquire that sense of self-worth, that sense of purpose that has us uphold those things which belong to us. And so then we trivialize those things and make important those things that are really trivial. It doesn't matter whether Terrence Howard is married to a black woman, a white woman, or a green woman. What matters is he true to his authentic self? Does he admire the fact that there are people upon whose shoulders he stood who were Africans, who were African Americans? Does he value that aspect of him? Will he teach that to his children? If he's doing that, it really doesn't matter who he's married to.
Well, Reverend Marks, I have to say to you, Angela, and to you, Ed, maybe that's something we need to apply to all of our lives.
Absolutely.
Because you can see the suffering in our community. We do not appreciate, look, hey, I went to an HBCU, but we don't want Howard, we want Harvard.
Correct.
And I think Harvard's great, but that which you built, that which is you,
Exactly.
value that first. You can't love anybody else.
But I do think we do
Until
have
you love
leaders
yourself.
in the community that are pro-African American, that are pro-giving back to our community, because we couldn't stand if we didn't have people like that. I have nieces that went to Hampton. My father went to Hampton. So what do? How do you eat an elephant bite by bite? I think that there are good examples of people who have success that are black, that are true to their race.
Well, you know, I think it's possible. You got the last word.
Yeah,
here.
I was just going to say value. You just used the word value. Whether we value our women, value another woman from a different race, it is about valuing ourselves first and getting to that level of maturity before we can begin to value anybody, whether they're from our race or outside.
There you go, because it's one human race now. Let's talk about that. But love yourself, everybody, as I pat down my afro today. We'll be back with more in just a moment.
Next, Santita explains her personal journey in a segment we call Wait a Minute.
Welcome back. Wait a minute. You know, when we started this show, I talked with you about my weight loss journey, having lost about 200 pounds because of weight loss surgery and because of following a certain regimen. I wanted to share that with you because we are struggling with our health. And I heard a lot from you from Bermuda, from the Bahamas, from all over the country about specific diets, about weight loss surgery. But I have to tell you, I was moved by this response. Boy, oh boy, this is a new day, because I'm trying to read this without my cheaters on. And on Facebook, Chapearl reached out to me, and Chapearl is from Chicago. And she said, you know, thank you for covering this topic. I watched your new show on the Word Network, and I was glad to see you on television. She used to listen to me on radio in Chicago. She said, during your show, I heard you mention your weight loss journey, and this is a battle that we both have in common. I was overweight. I was 392 pounds in 2006, and she just had weight loss surgery, and she has lost 56 pounds since January. Good for you, Chapearl. I want you to come to the Santita Jackson Show. As we build our studio audience, I want you to get on the sofa and tell us where you are, how you're doing, not to put you on Front Street, but to encourage you. Because you need encouraging. I need it too. I was reading a story about a man who said he had weight loss surgery and it did not work. Well, Reverend Dr. Johnny Coleman of the Christ Universal Temple in Chicago says that it works when you work it. And when he changed his eating habits, when he changed really his mind, because the Bible tells us that that's all we have to do is change our minds and elevate to God's way, and everything changes. Well, now he's at the great weight for himself, and his health has been restored. Praise God. So Chaparral, keep writing me, and I cannot wait to get you on the sofa so that you can encourage someone else. Well, let's transition, everybody. Ooh, dating while separated. On our last show, Ed is moving off to the side already. While we were on our last show, we got the female perspective, the woman's perspective. But now, Ed Foxworth. Used to be on CBS here in Detroit, and now you are a media personality, and you do marketing and so much stuff. I can't wait to hear from you and Reverend Bertram Marks. Used to be with the Michigan. Well, are you still with the Michigan Civil Rights Commission?
I am no longer a commissioner. I did serve.
Well,
a term.
you're an alum. There you
Yes.
go. But you are a lawyer and you're a minister, and
Yes.
you're a lawyer for ministers.
That is correct.
Boy, your plate is full. But let me tell you right now, I want to talk with you about dating while separated. Now, we heard what the women had to say. What do you think? Who wants to? Okay. You had a whole lot to say before we came on the air.
Well, I will honestly tell you, I'm single. So, as a single man, it's interesting in terms of the relationships that I might have encountered. And one of them might belong to the field of saying that dating while separated is okay as long as, and I heard what the women had to say, as long as that whole I word doesn't enter, intimacy. When you start diving into that, then the separation is no longer a separation. You've actually made the transition. So I do understand all of what I heard before with drama and you don't want this, and even your fantastic point of you can't love someone who's double-minded.
Yeah, intimacy. I mean, really,
Well,
how can you do that?
I think what we need are people who are going to help us mentally understand where we are and what are we actually talking about, because you may very well help me to either go back or either stay. So as long as intimacy stays out, then you at least become my partner.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
I'm an adult, and I encounter all kinds of men, and I have said to one or two men who I know who've approached me, who I wasn't quite sure of their status, which is always an issue. Look, I'm not going to date you, but we can become the best of friends, really. And maybe there's something I can say or do that might strengthen your marriage and help you. And hopefully one day when I get married, my husband will bump into someone like me. Who's well. Now, I don't know how well I am, but.
Oh my, you're very well. Marriage is a sacred institution, and I don't think it's a good idea to date while you're separating, because there is a lot of pain associated with dissolving a marriage, and it takes a lot of introspection from both parties, and we all want to, especially when kids are involved, it could become very confusing, not only for the children but for the individuals involved in the relationship. It is important to be able to separate out those kinds of emotions and deal with the relationship that you're in. It is inevitable that if you are dating while you're separated, the person you're dating, if there is a chemistry, if there's a connection there, that person will naturally want to see you go forward with that separation. Yeah. And so if you have conflicting feelings about whether you should move forward and now you entered in this new relationship, it's not healthy. But we have to also be realistic. It often happens. And so we could say all day long that you shouldn't do it. The fact is most people view separation as dissolution, and they engage in these relationships, and many of them are intimate even while they're separated, because we have become a society that views marriage as easily dissolved. And
is it easily dissolved?
Marriage is very easy
because there are a lot of books about men written by women. Okay, I want to hear from real men, and you all are real men, and I love that.
Yeah.
Well, I
Tell me,
thank you.
yes, I do. I honor that. I love that.
Marriage is easy to get into, but it's very difficult to get out.
Is it easy for men to walk away from marriage?
I think in certain circumstances it is easy to give up and throw in the towel. I'm not saying that that's the way it should be, but that's unfortunately the way it is in most instances.
Let me add a crazy part to it. Quite honestly, had we not been invited to be married, we probably wouldn't have decided to be married anyway.
I need you to explain that. What?
Well,
before I jump across this table.
I'm not going home agreeing with that.
No. And you know what? Listen, I always ask how many men would have got married if the idea had not been brought to them by a woman.
Oh, I absolutely would have gotten married, and the idea wasn't brought to me by my woman. I pursued her, and I was young at the time.
And that's fine. And there's a percentage.
Pursued her, yeah, right.
There's a percentage who do that.
You gotta let me go on record
let
with
me
this
sit
statement.
back. I'm
Go ahead,
loving
because you
this.
got to go
home.
Right.
Position.
He can't go home supporting that position.
Let me say this, and let me say this loud and clear, and I think it's important. I am married by choice. I did not feel pressured.
When you saw her, what did you think?
I'm going to marry her. I promise you. I tell my
There you go.
20-year-old son
I believe
this.
in that.
Okay.
I believe in that.
I tell my 20-year-old, he's 19, he'll do 20 in a few weeks. I tell him that all the time. He asks me, what drew you to her? When I looked at her, I said, I love her and I'm going to marry her. Now, that was 22 years ago, and I have not been a perfect husband. I would love to be able to say that I've been completely attentive, know all of her needs, never made her cry. I can't say that, but what I can say is that the same way I felt 22 years ago, I feel today when I look at her. I look at her and I'm glad to be married to her. I thank God that I have someone in my corner that I can share with, that I can grow with, and that marriage to me is a part of my being now. So if that were to dissolve, I don't think there's anybody who could even remotely come close to what I have with her. I just don't see myself being able to duplicate that.
And I totally get that. And that's why I say a percentage. There are a percentage of men who don't do what you do.
Right.
There are a percentage of men who do what you do, and I'm okay with that.
So what does the dude do? What did you do?
Who
what?
chase, who will pursue, who do
Because
what he just said.
are women pursuing? Oh, this is
Well,
crazy.
that is
I
happening.
love it.
Yes, you
are
know
women
that's
doing?
happening.
Cha-cha. Are women doing too much? Are women pursuing you now? I know they're pursuing you.
No.
They're not.
Not at all.
Oh, come on.
And so,
Oh, hell, where am I?
we're supposed to be
my
honest.
mother's in the audience today.
yes,
you
I
are
get my.
going to tell
I
an
get-
untruth in
I
front
get-
of my mama?
I get my share of attention. But the idea of what we talked about is, separation, and should we be dating when we're separated? Honestly, let's break down that. When you are in the house, there is a timeline when you made up your mind mentally that you didn't want to be here anymore. So before you actually moved out and were separated and I'm going to move across town and move with my mom or whatever, you made up your mind internally
Before
you even moved out of the house, that this was not working for you. And so, you get down the road and now you're out. How much time do you need to figure this out? And then how long is that going to be? And then as a human being, how long can you honestly be away from the person who you've committed through this marriage to be away from and not have an urge for the intimacy, for the emotional attention, and for the conversation?
I'm inside of a minute here.
One quick point.
Oh my God.
It has been scientifically, psychologically, clinically recorded that men cannot separate out of relationships without having another relationship to go into. We fear loneliness far more than women do.
I'd agree.
And that usually causes us to go from one relationship right into a next one. And that's not always the healthy path to separating or dissolving a marriage. We should be more thoughtful. We should probably think about trying to own knowing ourselves, knowing our relationship with God and ourselves as we contemplate dissolution, because maybe if we did that, we wouldn't dissolve.
Dating while separated quickly?
No.
Yes, without the intimacy.
No.
Without the intimacy. Yes, I need somebody who can work on this with me. Help me figure it out.
Then she can be your friend. More of the Santita Jackson Show in just a moment. Will you guys come back?
Yes.
Absolutely.
This was so rich. I love it.
Here's Santita's up close with a one-on-one interview.
One-on-one with Reverend Bertram Marks. He's a minister, he's a lawyer of two ministers. He's been on the Michigan Civil Rights Commission, but he's a husband and a father. And we were just talking with him, and we've been talking all program long about marriage and really what it means. And in this day and age, it's so wonderful to hear about marriage from a man, from a married man, and someone who is happily and well married.
Yes.
Because we're living in an age in which they say, there are no rules. The rules have changed. Have they really?
I don't think so. When it comes to the institution of marriage, it's something to be valued, especially in my life. And we have to be honest and practical about marriage.
What do you mean, honest and practical?
Because a lot of times people who talk glowingly about marriage give the illusion that marriages don't have ebbs and flows, and they do, you know, but when you are in love and when you are in respect with one another.
You said in respect.
In respect. There has to be respect. You cannot love somebody that you do not respect. And when you have love and respect, in those low times, you find a way to pull together and you find a way to work it out. And you define to yourself what it means to be married. And you say separation, divorce, those are not options. That we have, this is an institution we've built. It's an important institution, and we owe it to ourselves. No, let's not even get to the children. Let's not even get to the extended friends and family. Let's say what we owe to ourselves to work this out and make this work. There is no problem that's insurmountable if you are in love and if you are in respect. And I think it's imperative that you be under divine order. Because then under divine order, meaning that you give over the mistakes to the higher power to redeem. It's not for me to forgive her. It's not for her to forgive me. It's for God to forgive us both. And if we function in that kind of love, where love is just like the Bible said, doesn't keep a record of wrongs. Because if you do that, you know, there's not a marriage out there that has not suffered some problems. There's not a marriage out there where there have not been wrongs committed. And I say very openly and honestly that I believe in my marriage that I've been more wrong than she has. She's been
That's a great answer.
the pillar, the foundation of our marriage. And I thank God.
Do you think
for
women
that.
are structured to be the pillars and foundations of marriages?
I think women are structured to be the pillars and foundations of society.
And now a final word with Santita Jackson.
Closing thoughts on the Santita Jackson Show. Please call the number that you see on your screen because we want you to be a part of our audience. Boy, we've had a great show today talking about marriage, interracial marriage, dating while separated. There's so many issues that we want to discuss with you. We want you to be right here in the audience. Reach out to me on my Facebook page, the Santita Jackson fan page, and on Twitter, because we want to continue this conversation and keep those letters and emails and Facebook me about your weight stories, whether you're losing weight or not. Together we can get healthy. Until the next time, I'm Santita Jackson. May God bless you, and I hope that you're a blessing to others. Take care.
If you have a question, an idea for a show topic, or just want to leave a comment, log on to Facebook and visit the Santita Jackson fan page. And don't forget to follow her on Twitter at SantitaJ. Thanks for watching this edition of the Santita Jackson Show.